Welcome.
Hello, hello. So let's start then. I will like to introduce to you our expert for today, Mr. Balázs Kovács,
Good morning.
Who is not only our expert today, but really well-studied, someone in this team because he knows maybe more about the topic than anyone that I know. So first of all, welcome everyone. I would like to also say hi from our part. I'm representing VIMOS today, Hungarian Hospitality Employers Association, and I'm Bernadette Torma. Very nice to meet you. Maybe we have met before in Barcelona, I don't know. But yes, warm welcomes, and I hope that you will learn a lot of good practices today. So I will give the stage to Balázs.
Thank you very much, Bernadette. Welcome everybody. Also, I am calling from Vienna, and I have a nice coffee cap. Also, I don't think that you see with the giant wheel and with the St. Stephen Cathedral. Also, I'm drinking my coffee to prepare for you a fresh presentation. Also, this is my intention, and I am very happy and glad also that you joined us, and wish you a effective exchange for today. Also, thank you, Bernadette, for the introduction. I think, also, before I start, a couple of words, also, how I got here. I am a Hungarian, also, as you hear from my accent. So in Hungary, will be said that the Hungarian can lose everything except their accent. But I am sitting in Vienna. I am a Hungarian born in Budapest, so I am glad that this city is represented at this beautiful Tourban program. And at the same time, I have been following the development and history of the tourism from Austria for almost 15 years. Austria and Switzerland are a good example that we usually mention, as we Hungarian, we always mention these two countries when we talk about tourism, and these countries have developed originally over the past century and half is tourist sector, and many good examples can we find in those countries. I used to be a representative of the Hungarian National Tourist Board in Vienna, and I never ashamed to learn from my Austrian colleagues when I was working as a head of the foreign mission, for example. So I thought I would take this perspective to give today a presentation of almost an hour, a little bit more than an hour, what I have learned from the Australian colleagues, what trends are developing today that will help us to understand the future of tourism in terms of visitor satisfaction, guest satisfaction. But we need to pay attention to it if we as entrepreneurs and many stakeholders are between you, what we need to be successful in the market, in the new tourism world. As I mentioned, I have been the head of the official Hungarian Tourist Office for almost 10 years. And in Austria, I have been a freelance consultant for 5 years with my company. This is GD Consulting. Also, you see the logo behind me. Also, this is my consulting company, consulting agency. And I am who I came into contact with Tourban, also with this company, and which I think is a very, very good initiative. So I'm happy to be a part of this game and share some thoughts. So as first thoughts, as you probably know, as we are involved in this Tourban project funded by the European Union on these optional themes. So here you can see these thematical fields that Tourban is dealing with. And our task is to improve the visitor satisfaction and visitor involvement. So let us look what we see in the future success factor in the tourism sector. This is my diary for today. So here I have a very briefly summarized the topics I will touch in my presentation. In the meantime, please free, as Betty mentioned, to let me know if I come to a point that you see differently or have something to add. Although this is a frontal presentation, so we can make use of the platform that allows interactive. The Betty will eigentlich go on and see the chat box, and if something is dropped in, so she will sign us. So although this is a presentation overview, we can make during my assignment and job, especially in the last 5 years. So I've been working as a consultant in Vienna. I have a very good, intensive relationship during this period with my colleagues here, with my Austrian colleagues, and I also work with the Linz Tourist Association, who are considered here in Austria as the most creative development. And they are in the practical mindset, I think 3 or 4 years ahead of the average. You can consider them a little witch kitchen of the tourism. So that's why I think that bringing ideas, bringing fresh thoughts from Vienna, Linz, and other Austrian colleagues. So this will be the framework of my presentation. So I will also try to share some of the practices in this area, which I believe will help us to see the future 5 years ahead. And I will give you some orientation as we prepare for this new tourism world. And when some times remain, I would like to speak about a new way of tourism marketing, about the neuromarketing. And I suggest you also, let's start with the presentation. There are many Hungarian guests also by this panel, by this webinar. So I greet the colleagues from Hungary as well. And the Hungarian viewers may ask themselves, how did this gentleman in that hat get here? We Hungarian know him, so he is Ferenc Deák. We Hungarian believe that he is the wise man of the nation. And when you are in a situation where you have to make a decision and there are many alternatives and dilemmas as in the current time, it's advisable to turn to the wise. So we Hungarian often call the wise man of the land. He lived in the 18th century, and he prepared the Austrian-Hungarian monarchy, the constitutional base for that. And every Hungarian school child doesn't know where is the vice of the nation. He is the Deák Ferenc. And thinking about the last 2 years, the pandemic period was a watershed in our lives, and these watershed periods, also we can turn to the wise, also what would they do? Many people believe that there is a certain COVID before period, often called that pre-corona or the pre-coronavirus period. And now we are living in a transitional period, a breakdown, the tourist life cycle into a transnational and rebound period. And we hope that a calmer period will definitely come, the so-called post-corona period. And we are preparing for this time, for the new time, the so-called new tourism system. And the wise man of the land, Deák Ferenc, once said that if a coat is unbuttoned, so to pushed aside, so hence the jacket on the hand on this picture, and you want to fix it, you have no choice but to unbutton it all over again and start buttoning it again. And I feel this is a very illustrative example of where we are all now, not just in the tourism sector, but in all areas. So we are in a period of rethinking in that sense, although not consciously. Tourban is a very timely COSME project to help tourist entrepreneurs, stakeholders, when it's time of relaunch. And our aim would be to keep all the good things from the previous period, to preserve them, and all the bad things have the opportunity to change. So we should see the world in that way. From this point of view, the Tourban project initiatives invites participants on a journey to present a little of the world we imagine, which will bring a better time for the tourists focusing on the future. So creating a business and businesses and guests a more acceptable world, I would say. Creating a world where quality tourism and business environment and guest or the visitor satisfaction are minimum as important as the satisfaction of tourist workforces, as of for tourist staffs and local residents. I mean, that's broadly the line I thought I will taking in my presentation, if you allow me. That is important to record that the present is based on the past and the future is based on the present, on the current time that we are living in. And we are not saying that everything in the past was bad, because there were many good things that we want to keep as well. One of them is that many places we have felt the anomaly, the over-tourism, for example, in the last couple of years and things like that. So we see that sustainability, the circular economy, as a solution to counteract this, and the latter can be applied to all areas of the tourist sector: travel, accommodation, transport as well. On the other huge mega trend is the implementation of the new solution to counteract this. Would say also one trend is the sustainability, and other is, I think, is the digitalization as a driving force. With the help of the digitalization, we can speak about the so-called seamless travel to uninterrupted chain of experience from the inspiration parts, so decision to prepare to end of the journey across the entire scope of the customer journey. I believe and profess that we had learned most from the epidemic, that we are mutually dependent from each other. And one of the trends that in the industry analyzes underline trend to bring up is precisely the building up new networks, collaboration, and yeah. Sorry, also I've just changed two sides, because I look in the picture and then see that there is an other picture as I thought. And I would like to express also that we have learned in the last 2 years that anything can happen. I remember when 2 years ago at spring, when there was a talk of travel restriction and border closure, I told colleagues that this is unthinkable here in the EU, because it would be complementary, contrary of the principles of freedom of movements, goods, and the persons. And the EU defends these free movements. And what we thought was unthinkable has happened a couple of weeks after that. EU countries have also introduced a very strict epidemiological restriction. This photo, which I have included as an illustration on the top and the bottom, one were taken from almost the same angle of Vienna's business shopping street. Many of them maybe know that this is the Kärtnerstrasse. The bottom photo was taken for me in the second half of March 2020, when Vienna, also known as the capital of tourism, was completely transformed into a ghost city, in a ghost town. And we have gone from the concept of over-tourism to zero tourism, and now is a transition period of re-tourism, and the new tourism is being built, and we are cutting back on earlier wide shoots like over-tourism and looking to how to build a better, higher quality experience. As of an over-tourism, in the last couple of weeks, we arrived on the zero tourism. On the edge, we are building together the world of the new tourism. And we Hungarians are proud of the fact that we invented the Rubik cube. So this is the magic cube on the picture. And mathematicians say that from this 3 by 3 pattern early, 43 trillion possibilities can be created. This also shows that although the pool of the possibilities seems small, we would like to create a pattern what we like from this new start. And I also think that is a symbolic coincidence that the cube, this Rubik cube, is made up of 27 pieces, the same number as the current number of the European Union. So there are 7 countries participating in our Tourban project. We need an EU opportunity to create a pattern in which we can strengthen the competitiveness of tourism, not only in our own cities, but also in Europe as a whole by thinking in terms of networks. And before we go into specific example, details, I would like to highlight 2 trends that we have been reading about the industry research everywhere lately, also, which you may be familiar with, but I think it's necessary to record them as a starting point. And this is the point that I wanted to show you before, but I changed the slides. So the main megatrend is sustainability, the circular economy, and the digitalization as a driving force. And in the point of view, the 22nd century will be also about networking and collaboration. So what I would like to underline, so development can only be achieved through cooperation. And I hope that cooperation outside cities and nation states will really cross border, and our project is also for that reason to make a solid collaboration form a networking. And this project is encouraging learning from each other, learning from good examples, so thinking in networks. And of course, gas traffic optimization, and it's also often mentioned. And I would like also call your attention to tourist destination management organization. So DMOs will increasingly focus in the future on to stance against over tourism. So that's the starting point. So these are the key trends. And here I would like to take the first big trend, as I mentioned before, also the sustainability and some practical ideas, good practices of circular tourism. Also, I won't go far. So I am, as I mentioned, I am reporting from Vienna, and here in Vienna is a hotel, the so-called boutique hotel Stadthalle, who was the first zero-based hotel in the world, whose managers 20 years ago, as she's a visionary and a first mover, dreamed up the concept to create a sustainable zero energy hotel that would be self-sustaining. So it was the idea 20 years ago. A hotel which uses only as much energy as it can produce itself. And if we put our hands on our hearts, so 20 years ago, so around the turn of the century of the millennium, it seemed like a really very innovative, bold and brave idea. the owner and the director of this hotel, who was the president, a long-time president of the Austrian Hotel Association for 9 years, he gradually realized his dream by step with her team. So I think it's a very good example that is worth to study. Nowadays, this hotel is winning sustainability awards after sustainability awards. So there is not enough wall surface to put all these certificates on. The idea is almost very simple, to follow the principle of reduce, reuse, recycle, also very often known in English as these 3 Rs. So they are also thoughtful about every new purchases. For example, the hotel is built with recycled furniture, although this is the 4th-star, a very elegant hotel. The manager's good style is a big help. They buy from flea markets, for example, and then assemble these items into new pieces of furniture with a design company who are in the same district as them, saving on the harmful emissions of transport. So there is another point behind of the sustainability. The workshop, these design workshops who manufacturing the furniture also employs prisoners, helping their social reintegration. So they also represent social sustainability, not only ecological and such kind of sustainability. Other good examples from here, the hotel staff are given the opportunity to gather after breakfast time, to have a nice time together, take home food or give to charities. So nothing is wasted principle. They are ensured that they can participate in this educational process to bring this message of sustainability further to their guests. In the lobby, for example, one of the sofas is a patchwork covering of the sofas from the old jeans of the hotel staff. So giving him a good feeling for the staff to being their old jeans recycled, and the employees also feels the ownership of the hotel. And this story is very proudly communicated well to the guests. So they engage an immersive world between the staff and the guest, and the guest and the staff are also very happy also to share this common idea. Guest, for first of all, the regular guest, and the hotel has many regular guests, also can bring on their own items that are worn out and carry a story. A special wall has been set up for these items so that the regular guests bring to the hotel. This also helps guests to feel more connected, has a personal connection to these hotels. And then another good practice which I would recommend you to study, the reward system of this hotel. So rewards are given for those who arrive by sustainable transport, so train, electric car, bicycle, and so on. So they get a discount if they can prove. So they a discount right away, the arrival. So the whole education bonus system is built around this sustainability. And she's the owner and the director, so Miss Michael Reiterer, and he taught further also this new thinking method about sustainability and the education by setting up room for thematic rooms. So this is also a very innovative idea. The hotels have thematic rooms aligned with the United Nations Sustainability Guidelines. This is a SDG, Sustainable Development Goal of the UN. There are 17, and explaining for each room why are these SDGs so important. For example, cheap and reliable energy is a guideline number 4 for the UNO SDG. And there is a thematic room, number 4, also Number 4, I visited them and I was in this room. The furnishing looked like the bedpost was, for example, a solar panel that couldn't no longer be used. On the wall as an ornament was a wind turbine blade. The lamp was made from a petrol pump used in India, so pointing out that there is not natural everywhere in the world to go with your car to fill up and just get petrol from the well. So by telling and showing these stories, we are not only educating the guests, but also engaging them, so making them part of the show and part of the story. And I think it's a very, very good examples to follow. And I would like to advise to visit the website from this boutique hotel Stadthalle. And there is a lot of good practices, so that is advised to follow. And let's go further. So that were some practical things, and let's go behind these practical examples. And it's important to have an overall theory behind this. In Austria, one such document is the Masterplan für Tourismus. Das ist ein Tourist-Strategy developed by the Federal Tourist Board in March 2019, also for the coronavirus, but it does not yet calculate the impact of the epidemic. But I recommend to your attention that this publication, which is a pioneer document of this new area of tourism, we needed also to solve that so many anomalies and such unsustainability and over tourism, and they have a practical solution methods. And the main message from this master plan for tourism, this master plan for the tourism sector, is that people must be put in the center of thinking about tourism. If I should summarize in one sentence the main message. So what I have said here as on the picture, as I wrote as a holy trinity, as this is the basic principle, the message of this publication, in that new world of tourism. So we will be doing the right thing if people living in the area, people visiting the certain area, so the visitor, and people working in the tourism sector all find happiness and satisfaction. If we get this right, everyone will be enriched in one way or another, in material goods, enriched in quality of life, enriched in experience, respectively. So what makes these three actors happy? This is the main question in the visitor satisfaction. And for our current Tourban working group, this is also what we are dealing with, how these seemingly simple statements create a holy trinity between the locals, the visitors, and the working force in the tourist sector. How can we put into a practice? Well, the Austrian master plan breaks with number of concepts. They are no longer talking about, for example, about destination and reception area, because the only looks at the world from the visitor's point of view. They do not use the expression destination. They are talking about experience area. They are talking about a coherent, high quality experience, which can only be created if the locals enjoy themselves as well. Focus not on the tourist, but on the people. From the marketing point of view, we shouldn't see target groups. So they are not talking about targets group, but they talking about, instead of target groups, about partners who are part of the game as well, part of the experience. And the local visitor should be the such and as a good praxis is the city of Vienna's visitor economic strategy, which was launched in November 2018. At 2018 November, it's the time the coronavirus has already emerged in China, but at that time we in Europe knew nothing about it. The Vienna Tourism Association cannot be accused of having foreseen this, but they should be praised for bringing about a paradigm shift in tourism. So with that document, they have said that the word Fremdenverkehr, so if we translate foreigner transfer in mirror translation, which was used in the early 80s and 90s, has been replaced in the 2000s by the concept of tourism. So Fremdenverkehr, Tourismus, which is a very much business-focused expression. So it concentrated on business, on profit, and how to make money from this sector. And now we have to come to the new concept of visitor economy. So this is the third step from the foreigner transfer to business-oriented tourism, and yet is the new tourist word, is the word of the visitor economy, which is centered on a aforementioned Holy Trinity. In Austria, these plans have built on each other nicely, and there are good initiatives in this direction. So the visitor economy is also about turning our current mindset around. So far, the focus has been on what can city, what can, for example, Barcelona, Kiel, Amsterdam, Budapest, Copenhagen give to the visitor, to us. They are turning the thinking around. So I have put GFK at the bottom because the President Kennedy once said to the Americans, so look not what America can give you as a voters, but look at what you can give for America. And I think this is the mindset that the visitor economy puts into practice. So don't look at what the city can give to the tourist. Look at what the tourist can give to the city. I think also this is the main message from the visitor economy, which I learned from my colleagues in Vienna. The focus is always on the Trinity, also enhancing the quality of life of local people and tourist workers through visitors. By visitors, we mean the same as in-town residents who is just visiting another district. Their impact must also be taken into account. So let's create opportunities for as much interaction as possible so that the local residents and the visitors can have a rich experiences with each other. Concepts such as I listed here, as business value added, city value added, have been introduced. So how can a city benefit from the visitor? So this is the main question, so that we should also bear in mind as thinking about the new method of the strategic concepts in tourism. Place branding, also place management concepts are also introduced. So this publication is also available in English. So I recommend everyone to read it or to get it quickly through. So these new phrases are worth to know. Also, it introduces new indicators and approaches as well. For example, Vienna has already said in November 2019 that they are no longer interested in the number of overnight stays. So more important to them are such indicators as how much local value is being created, how many places, how many hotels pension, restaurants have green certification, and they have set targets such as doubling the number of hotels with green certification by 2025 compared to the baseline as of 2018. Using the same years as a baselines, they have set to target, for example, to turn around the number of people visiting the city by rail and car. So they promote the sustainability way of transfer method, and would like to increase the number of visitors who are arriving by rail. And importantly, as we will see, the people of Vienna's measure the satisfaction of both tourists and locals as well. In Austria, many people say that we have reached a third phase of the so-called consumer society. The first phase was the phase of selling products. Afterwards, a very service sector was built on top of it, and the selling of this was the main aspect. And the third phase is not about new products, it is about developing new narratives to sell experience. Increasingly, it should be seen that the before mentioned DMOs, so destination marketing, destination management organization, also have a role to play in developing new narratives, making visitors aware of them and wondering about them. So I have learned a lot in this respect from my colleagues in Linz, who, when Linz became the capital of culture, the capital of European culture, the European capital of culture in 2009, and started to work on the narrative that the city is changing and the visitor and residents are also changing. And by emphasizing that we ourselves are the forerunners of positive change, we are able to change our visitors or guests as well. If we do our job good, we have visitors, they are different, better, new people, enriched by experience when they leave our experience area, formal said, or destination. The Linz colleagues also say that the DMO, and it is not a destination marketing organization anymore, this is destination management or organization. So DMO is good when they act as a conductor, a kind of mental bridgehead between local, cultural, and tourist businesses. From a marketing point of view, it will also be about promoting the joys of life, the art of living, the quality of life. So it's important to use positive future-oriented expressions and messages in your communication and marketing. I also learned from my colleagues in Linz. So here you can see on this picture, this pink building is the Ars Electronica Center, which they also called Museum of the Future, which is no coincidence. So Linz is positioning itself as the city of the future because they can't be so proud of their past as Vienna or Salzburg, for example. So they figured out that they would start talking about the future. In fact, the recipe for the new tourists is outlined through their work and what they have said. They very often mention that we arrived in a new tourist area, a tourist area without tourists, because nobody wants to be a tourist because of their tourist. The word has a negative undertone today. It's a not trendy thing anymore to be a tourist. It's not a sustainable thing. That's why the colleague said the word of tourist without tourist has arrived, which may sound surprising at first, but it is the same thing. It is simply putting the people in the center, the visitor and the local residents as well. When people ask me what I am doing this summer, I have no intention as well as of saying as I am going to be a tourist, as I am going to come here either and explore. I am going to visit that town, but no one would refer to themselves as a tourist, not even because of the before mentioned negative undertone. So how should experience be presented, made to it begin to really work? So it's no longer a case of visitors buying a guidebook, going online on selling the on the seeing the attractions listed. As a visitor, so ask yourself, so do we want to experience the same things that everyone else has experienced before? Because if we follow the footsteps of others, we will not experience anything new. So the new tourism is all about shaking up what is already familiar. So you should always ask questions. So they don't even know, for example, in Linz, the word guide, because in the German language, Fremdenführer, tour guide, there is a word written alien, guide for alien, guide for outsiders. Or visitors are not outsiders; they are not alien. Both in the Hungarian and the German languages, it's so, and that's why they decided. They say there is no need for this word. The new name of the tour guide in Linz is moderator, because the tour guide has the role to moderate encounters. The new tourism is to moderate encounters between locals and visitors, so inspiring each other and creating for this inspiration, during this inspiration, the new experiences. And if we do it right, everyone will happy. According to our colleagues from Linz, this is the basis of the visitors' satisfaction, to be the moderator of encounters. And Linz tourism, as I said in the introduction, are 3-4 years ahead of us, and it's worth paying attention to them because they are before as the mainstream currently. You have to be ahead of the mainstream if you like to win in the new world of the tourist. Of course, innovative technologies as digitalization should be integrated into this storytelling, playfully offering new experience, but the main goal is to increase the number of the interaction under the visitors and the locals. And you can find also many good examples in terms of gamification, so when we use the digital tools to set up these kind of experiences. And if I have to recommend one other document in this regard, it would be the Barcelona Declaration of the Network of the European Regions for Sustainable and Competitive Tourism. So I think the colleagues from Barcelona know that document. So it has a title, Better Place to Live, Better Place to Visit, so the so-called Barcelona Declaration. So this document, it's a very good summarizes so very nicely how tourist attraction operators, in most cases cultural operators, museum, national parks, can work in a sustainable way, so it remains a sustainable and authentic experience to establish, and not to create distortion and anomalies. So this document, in my point of view, it's a very, how to say, as a meticulous guide on what to look out for. So here again, the Trinity is emphasized. So what is good for the local is good for the the visitor. Also, with such statement can we read in this declaration. The name of declaration says it's all. Also, live like a local is a key motivation for the visitor and the visitor satisfaction point of view. It's a key issue in the future. And if we understand this, we will understand better the basis of the visitor satisfaction, what makes the visitors happy. And yeah, so also a little theoretical introduction. So I would like to share one or two thoughts from a theoretical point of view, because I admit, and this is my point of view, that no one of us has the so-called philosopher stone. Also, but together can be very wise. Also, I don't know what the future will be bring, but it's worth to looking and see the good examples, and then can we find a good opportunity for the future. And I've been looking at tourism from Austria for 50 years, as I said, and I can see that differences in approach as the Hungarian or as the Austrian approach of the tourism sector. And I think these are very helpful in terms of marketing and guest satisfaction to understand these differences. And you can turn to languages to understand better, because the language always expresses very well the way some nation think. We Hungarian, for example, if we are satisfied with something, we say that is the icing on the cake or the dot on the I. And I learned from the Austrian that everything can be done better. And that's my point of view. So everything can be done better, and that you can put a cherry on the top of the cake, Kirsche auf der Sahne, as the German say. And I think in the French language, there is an expression for dipping the cherry in icing. So you can make everything better. You can put the icing of the cake, and you can put the cherry of the icing, and put the cherry also in an icing. So in tourism, in the visitor economy, that's what you have to strive for, to build up the experience in a nice, systematic way. And the business is in the repetition, so that they should know. So come up with something good, develop it professionally, add a little extra cherry on the top through marketing and storytelling, and repeat it. And that comes in sustainably business method. So that's actually the basis of the tourist competitiveness. So that we think of tourism as actually building part of the leisure economy, which is an opportunity for us to influence the world around us in a soft way. And if we go further, also I introduce also this expression soft power, this term soft power, which we talk about a lot in Austria. It comes up very often. What they mean is that tourism is a very important sector in terms of image forming, image shaping, nation branding. So it has a so-called soft power. And by the way, so Joseph Nye, a professor of the Harvard University, wrote a book on this in the late 80s, a book with a similar title, in which he talks about the fact that there is hard power when we impose our will by economic means, by military means. So in the Ukraine-Russian war, we unfortunately see also what hard power means. And on the other hand, also there is the soft power when we use soft means to influence others in a position, direction, or get them to follow us or follow our example. Tourism and culture is a very good opportunity, a very good sector from this point of view. Here I would like to draw your attention to the Portland Index, which every year produces, so this soft power index of the economically developed OECD countries. It's a very complex index from the number of the Michelin-starred restaurants in the country to the citation index of university, the number of gold, silver medals and the Olympic Games, and promotion and number of foreign comments on the Facebook pages on leading politicians of the country are well aggregated in this complex index. And Austria is very good at that index. So that's why I would like call your attention to study these sub-indexes, also how we can create this composite one. On the other important indicator that I would like to draw your attention to, it is the World Economic Forum's Tourist Competitive Index. So I think many of you know that index, which was not produced during the pandemic, but is in principle produced every year. And what's important is when we talked about creating quality experience, it's worth thinking about the concept of tourist service infrastructure, and which is also an important criterion in terms of visitor satisfaction. And of the 140 countries surveyed every year when they do the research, and Austria is in the second place after Switzerland if we see this tourist service infrastructure sub indicator. So we are in the right place when we talk about learning from the Austrians about the tricks and of the trade in terms of guest satisfaction of involvement. So this is my point of view as with that child. Also, in fact, sorry, also this figure is like an eye test for you. It shows that the components of quality of life are which components this quality of life phenomenon have, what local people need to improve their quality of life. It also shows that tourism is influenced by social relationships and encounters. People are social beings, so it's very important as a motivator to increase happiness. So it is no coincidence that the Austria, the visitor economy sector, is seen as a happiness factory. So this thinking method is behind in the everyday business life of the Austrian tourist colleagues. So to make ourselves and or visitors happy, and this sense, so all of us who work in tourism as a service provider have a job like the little Jesus Christ who brings happiness on one day of the year at the Christmas times, and our job is to make every day of the year a Christmas for our visitors. And that's what makes it the most beautiful profession of the world, also that we have in the tourist sector. And it sometimes we say as a motivation, we should say as a motivation to those who are about to choose tourism as a career. So the question after this pandemic, also what I heard from students as well, very often arises the question, is it still worth working in tourism? And my answer is yes, it is. Also we must also motivate young people, the future generation, also to take that job, because it's one of the most beautiful profession in the world. Also to make Christmas every day for the people, to make them happy and make the visitors satisfied. So, and I really just to give you two example from Austria, how they think about this in this country, also where I am living. Also, sorry, also this is the last eye test for today. Also, I promise you, this chart is with this circle is the brand essence of the Austrian tourist strategy. From the National Tourist Office brand handbook, take this picture, and which is about Austria. It says that Austria being the country that understands what makes tourists happy. This is a very solid pillar of the whole brand essence of the Austrian National Tourist Marketing Strategy, to make people happy, and we understand what makes tourists happy. To show how much this happiness mindfulness is also present in other sector, a couple of examples collected for you. The local shopping center, so this is a shopping street, advertising shopping with happiness. So here is, for example, a soft drink, a juice, also called under the name Glücksmoment, also happiness moment. One of my last ski experience, the ski rental was also advertised as rent happiness, so suggesting that spending leisure time is happiness. And if you look the campaigns, the tourist campaigns in Austria, so there is a mapping of these messages and moments for each season. So they come across as a very strong happiness center message. For example, here for winter and ski tourism. As the next slide is in the summer happiness moments. Summer experience in the beautiful Carinthia is promoting waterfront tourism with an appropriate slogan, and message is very rich in linguistic cleverness. And so my father swims in pride, can we read on that sujet. But in other fields of tourism, like active rural tourism, so family gatherings, so they have a very nice elaborated promotion terms, and every is a joy center, joyfulness, cheerfulness, and the happiness moments that we can realize. And come further from the promotion side of the tourism to the information side, because the treasure of information, also the information is the new gold, as we know. And then I will move on the other big trend that I mentioned in the introduction, also alongside sustainability and circular economy and the visitor economy. This trend is the digitalization. In Austria, they know that information is treasure, and it's not accident that there was already a digital tourism strategy in place here in 2017. As I mentioned, that the first zero-base hotel was in Vienna established, so 20 years ago, and the first digital tourism strategy also established in Austria in 2017, which is a very simply about the message is taking back control of your own data. This is the most important task from this strategy. In many cases, hotel uses booking portal and pays 20% commission just to get its offer to as many people as possible. And if you as a hotel keeper want to know what search terms and visitors used to reach them, they have to pay. You have to pay extra money to get this data. Austria's digital tourism strategy says we should turn around, reclaim our data, and develop our own booking portals for DMOs, the destination, the national level, and important governments projects are being built to do this according to this strategy, which I also advise you to read it. This is also available in English. And let's go further. The strategy is based on the fact that we are aware that is a dual revolution in our time. on the one hand, a biotechnological revolution in which we learn more and more about ourselves and our decision-making process through brain research and by understanding biological processes year by year in a better way. On the other hand, an information revolution is currently being up, is taking place, which allows us to process this amount of information with huge machines based on some kind of algorithms, so big data and such terms of phrases so belong to that topic. And here it is the artificial intelligence that creates the link between the two revolutions. And in the future, in the context of the new tourism, it's very important to take this into account, because a lot of information about our visitors is also being generated in the digital space, and it's important that we have access to this data and can process it in a digestible form, that we should aware of them. Obviously, this is a primary the task of the larger DMOs to create that. And there are a number of initiatives and actions in this connection to put digitalization and possession of information at the service of an experience-based tourism. One of these very important pieces of information is how satisfied our visitors are. It's important to know who, how many, what they come with, but the question of why they came, how they found us, whether they plan to come back, what they like about us, what they don't like about us, it's still in an embryonic stage in the measure. So we know many things from our tourists, but the main thing, what do you think, what they think about us, we don't know this kind of information. The Austrians are also very good at this. They have the TEMON, the tourism monitoring system, is one of the most advanced guest satisfaction measurement system in Europe. They can measure this to such a level that anyone visiting Austria cannot avoid being asked for their opinion. In this respect, they know a lot about their guests. Is also a very good example. And the same way, the satisfaction of local people is measured in Vienna, where there is a huge emphasis on this, and people are constantly asked about the contribution of the tourist sector to their quality of life. And the pre-pandemic period have this last survey. When this measurement made sense, the positive response rate was between 90 and 95%. So people were aware that tourism enriches them, the local people. And this is a very important indicator and essential part of the visitor economy. The aim is to keep it constantly above 90%, as said the officials. And if it falls below, that needs to be looked at closely, because in the long term, dissatisfaction among residents will lead to the breakdown of the visitor experience, and so problems need to be addressed while they are still in the infancy, so at the beginning. And I think it's a very good way of method and thinking method about tourism. So the lunchtime is preparing, so I try to be a little bit hurry up. And I thought I would also talk a little bit about the Digital Tourism Index, which I find also a very good example from Austria. This is a new research developed by Google Austria and the Austrian Association of Travel Agencies, which examines, on the one hand, how flexible travel agencies in the country are, how customer-oriented they are, how they meet the expectation of the future visitor, and that's how satisfied they are with their customers. And on the other hand, it looks this composite index at the customers' criteria of travel agency. Flexibility, transparency as a very important criteria is listed, and this is done annually. So there is a healthy competition between travel agency to see how will be the winner in a certain category, and a very good feedback as well on how consumer demand is changing from year to year, why they are booking through travel agency also to get the answer this question, and streamline the experience supply side according on that fact. So they have from this digital tourism index. In the recent period, network research has been a very valuable tool in the context of the epidemic. So it has been possible to predict the development, spread, the intensity of the epidemic by tracing contacts. And from that time, as we talking many times about the network research, and the prestige of these studies are increasing. A lot of people are now paying attention to this area of science in the tourist sector as well. And that's why I brought this slide to you. So I have a book recommendation from a Hungarian network researcher. So he lives in the US. The name is Albert László Barabási, which is also available in English. So the English title of the book is The Formula. And this book is about the universal laws of success, so pointing out that there are limits in our performance, because a day is 24 hours and we cannot work 25 hours a day. So there is a strict limit. At the same time, success is unlimited, because given the same performance, someone will be successful and someone will be ignored. Some hotel is very good in ranking, others are not good. And the same for experience area and destination. So very simply put, the message is that the formula for success is good performance, but on the other hand, we need to network ourselves. So performance must be very good. So this is a certain basis, but it's not enough to be successful. And we need a network ourselves. And it is the network we are in that determines how successful we will be in that area. In tourism, this is particularly essential if we, as a successful professional, want satisfied visitors. So we must understand the recipe of the success. So we need good practices, cooperation, and information from our network. So this is also a message that I wanted to bring you in. As just very briefly, another example how the Austrian arrives somewhat early in these terms of networking. They have been developed tourist products in a network since the mid-70s. So 40 years experience have to working and set up networks in a certain tourist products. So these are called supply groups, and they Angebotsgruppe in German, and they network hotels and service providers along different thematic, along different themes. And they have their own network of, for example, on the pictures, the mountain bike friendly hotels, the association of castle and hotels, and also villaging child friendly hotels and monasteries, so which we all know. They are very good setup networking, working together for decades. And that's why they are successful, because they learn the lesson of the formula of the success, so to create network. And this makes it so they are all network. Along the network, different experience cards and passes are appearing. in Austria for marketing point of view, and these have the great advantage that they are often digital. That makes it possible to track the visitor's journey, where they visit and how long they spend here. They are also used for product development and to increase consumer loyalty. So they are really useful kits. The well card on this picture, which is used in Austria and Central Europe, has been integrated into an everyday practice, bringing together the best wellness hotels and spas and giving them the chance to each other to promote and to give it as a gift. For a relatively small amount, you can buy these well-card cards for 50 euros. It's not a bribe to give to a teacher or colleagues as a thank you. And it makes everyone who receives or gives an ambassador of the positive messages and tourism. It's a very good promotion for this happiness factory method of thinking the way about tourism. And when we are at happiness and joy of life, an example from Linz, from the Linz Tourismus, very briefly to summarize what I would like to say about the new world of tourism in terms of guest satisfaction. So let us dare to bring fresh idea. The people of Linz have changed themselves by 2009. They still thought of the city very much as an industrial city. It has a pure industrial city image at that time, so 20 years ago, which also has a bad air quality. But the capital of culture here, so 2009, has been used very cleverly to reposition this, and it has been continuously and consciously developed over the last 15 years. So they advertise that the city itself is constantly changing, and they are changing the people and who visit them and the people who live there, as the local residents, in a positive way. The chain of the positive changes. And they are at the forefront of very innovative product development. So they dare to bring fresh ideas. So this is my message. A few years ago, for example, 2 American scientists were awarded to the Nobel Prize in life sciences for their work on the so-called circular circadian cycle. So this is the internal clock when we as a human being, we have an internet clock as well, and the mechanism behind that was prized with Nobel Prize. And it's about how every time of the day has a different biological rhythm when we are active. When you focus on the human being, and this is the lesson for today, put the people in the center. You must focus on the human being. It's also important to learn about for other areas of sciences. So that's why I put the network research. That's why I put the life sciences, the biologicals, in my presentation. So based, for example, on this, colleagues from Leeds have created a form of conferences called Blue Meeting. This is an organization form that focuses on people in the meeting industry, not on the venue, not on the services, and not only on what people expect to want. And I have been attending on such a conference, which is that, for example, you can watch the afternoon lecture from a Chesterfield leather cigar chair if you want. You can see it from a recliner or a deck chair, as you see in the picture, if you want, or even kneeling on a bar if I feel like. So it depends on the daily life cycle of the person. The attention span of a jet lag guest who arrived to the conference will be quite different from the visitor who arrives from the next town, for example, next city. By putting this at the heart of the organization, we can serve people's everyday needs. So they have started to pay attention to the need for natural light and conference, and have introduced a concept of experience space. So this is the blue meeting. As a green meeting, everybody knows what I am talking about. The blue meeting is a new innovative meeting form that puts the people in the center. After 3 days of listening to a conference, so we have also practice with that. It's not uncommon to spend days in a closed room and not even know where you are, in which city you are sitting 3 days in a conference, to travel home after the conference without having seen anything, and to feel that one was like as the other. So, and the colleagues in Rinz, they break this up and they organize the lunch break, for example, the so-called vision lunch concept, which is about breaking up the visiting team into small focus groups. The facilitators of the meetings, so not the guides, so the moderators of the meeting, take them to the surrounding places where they can deepen their professional discussion over lunch, even develop friendships, make networking, and even see something of the city on the way there. And the moderators, the before mentioned tour guides, so the moderators can also do something educational for them. This enriches everyone and makes what used to be boring conference more enjoyable. So this is the mindset behind this blue meeting. And as a very good example, for example, the spiritual minibar in every hotels, beside the Bible, they give a booklet, a spiritual minibar. It includes every hotel in Linz, a book with funny little stories about the city, told by local peoples as a bedtime reading, so you can have this book. For example, little stories in the morning, get up and go to the botanical garden, the birds are chirping sweet at time, then the Linzer cake, the famous Linzer cake, and the hydrocafé around the corner is a must. Then go to the largest cathedral in the sun streaming through Mary's glass, and 10 o'clock painting the ceiling beautifully, and so on. So the little kind stories from local people, they pay special attention to students and teachers as well. I have a booklet example here. They have produced a manual how best to show the city on field trips or visiting school classes. So there are a lot of components to make a tourist destination into a quality experience area, and present that anyway. And it is possible to give you some homework to do, because I am under time pressure. So I recommend to please watch this film also after my presentation in the relaxed situation. So I suggest this film, Linz is Linz, on YouTube to see. It's a very good example how to communicate a destination in the world of new tourism without cliches, without frills, and with new narratives. So the short film exploded last summer, reaching hundreds of thousands of views in a few days, with 80% positive feedback, so which I would like to underline. And within a few weeks, the number of bookings in Linz had jumped again. Universities organized debates on, according to that film, on what our city is like, and a very healthy communication started, according that film, about the city. What is the city like? What we are like, and what we can change without being ashamed of our own weaknesses. It is a very honest, humorous, witty, provocative style of advertising. As I recommend you to watch. So Linz is Linz in English, or the Linz ist Linz in German. But last but not least, as I promised you, I want to present to you, on the other hand, in terms of guest satisfaction and digitalization that are inevitable for tourists. I know that lunchtime is coming, or per seconds, please. As a final example, I would like to mention the phenomenon, as I promised in my introduction, the phenomenon of neuromarketing, because I feel that we are not yet putting enough emphasis on that very important branch of marketing, although here in Vienna, the colleagues are already using the neuromarketing approach for ages. What's neuromarketing about? It's a relatively new field that seeks to translate new discoveries and new knowledge in brain research into the business world. I've talked about the fact that there is also a biotechnological revolution currently. This is going on, and we are learning more and more about on our bodies, as the blue meeting concept is based on that research, and how we make decision and how to make them. It's very good research by the brain researcher, and neuromarketing is a part of this. And its most important findings that 80% of our decision are not conscious, so not a cognizant way. This is a revolutionary discovery. 18% of the decision we think we make is not consciously. Also, they are subconsciously, or how to say that. So today's marketing book are very well and good, but only 10% of the decision influenced by the real marketing, as we know. 80% made it into the so-called limbic part of our brain. And neuromarketing deals with this hidden area, is built up. With the result of research over the last decade, this can be modeled and generated very nicely. Also, the limbic part of all human brains on Earth can be divided according to the value fields into three big three big area: the dominance center, the balance center, and the creativity center. And to each center belongs many value fields. And for each major part of there are concepts and values. This is here to see on this limbic part of the brain. So this is the limbic map of our brain. And for each major part, there are values indicated, and these concepts are located into the same area of the brain for everyone, regardless of nationality, skin color, or eye color. So this is the beautiful in that this is all over the world, where every human is this mental map the same. This suggests a huge potential. It can be measured, although these tests are, of course, not cheap, but their conclusion can be generalized. If I say, for example, Sicherheit, also safety, quality is quality, or Heimat, also tradition, patriots, it triggers or reaction at the specific point of the brain, which can be measured by electrocenters. And by assigning values and concepts to certain areas, we can formulate marketing messages very nicely without them getting lost in the ether, or without wastage, which has such decision which have no so-called cognitive dissonance. So we also feel that the brand as a phenomenon, as a marketing phenomenon, is a very complex combination of colors, of values, of emotions. Skoda, the auto, for example, goes with the values of attached and security. And in the same way, you can look at what brands, colors, values fit with other area. And if we understand this method of the limbic system, so we can make it very profitable for our everyday life when we are dealing with marketing. The same can be done for destination as well. So we can use their findings to target development and specific which value fields can you meet or the match with Berlin, with Barcelona, for which value, which kind of color, smell, association are appropriate. If you use this kind of approach, you have no wastage in the marketing. So if we understand this logic, we can uncover problems such as half the money spent on the marketing was wasted money. So this is a famous saying, but we just don't know which half is not good enough. And if we use the tool of neuromarketing, our work becomes very simple, and we can save many money. And in the last part sentence, this allows us to identify, so this limping method, 7 target groups whose mindset and performance we know, so we can easily see where our destination fits it, what kind of visitors can we achieve with, and make that more and more specifically satisfied. So Vienna, for example, is set to be global smart premium target market for this hedonist. So they are concentrating on the hedonist segment. And it's no coincidence that Vienna in color is red and white when it comes to marketing material about the city. Everything is based on this neuromarketing and limbic method. So here are some sujets from the Vienna promotion materials, and you can read more about this in the book of the Professor Heusel. The book has the title Brain View. And then I would like to give you the platform for questions. So thank you very much. So I was very monotone. So I think it's a little bit boring to speaking 1.5 hour in with an Hungarian strong accent, and that's why I would like to thank you your kind attention and endurance. And I check my watch, so we have no remained time also for question. So the floor is open. Some recommendation. Also, I have also a website for my company, and I'm writing a blog, for example, in Hungarian and German language. Who know German, they can read more about these methods that I showed, and you can find here the strategy paper from the Barcelona Declaration to the Vienna Visitors Economics Strategy, or the master plan, which I recommended during my presentation to you as a best practice. So I would like advice to keep in touch. So when you don't have question, then you can send me or send Betty, and Betty can spread it all over. And I am looking forward to our next meeting in hybrid format or offline format, so it would be the best.
I would like to thank you, Balázs. I think it was an amazing presentation, and I hope that everyone can bring something with them and get some new experiences, and their thought process just turned on, and there will be good ideas to come. Thank you very much for listening. And as Balázs said, anytime you have any questions or problems with your own projects, you can feel free to contact me or him, and we will try to help you. And thank you very much. Have a really nice day.
And if you travel to Vienna, so please let me know, and I very would be very glad also to have a cup of coffee with you, the famous Vienna coffee. Okay, all the best. Cheers. Bye bye. Bye bye.